Hey, Harold.
Hi, Kenny.
How's the desert, man?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. Wow, it's so nice.
I'm heading up to Montana on Sunday.
Oh, good.
It's supposed to snow.
No way. God. That's
In
crazy.
Glacier Park, they closed the roads in May
Why?
for bicyclists and snow plows.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay. How cold is it though?
It looks like 35 to 60 to 65.
Wow. Wow.
Just like the
Okay.
desert. Coming back for Shabbos?
What's that?
You back
Am I
for
going back
Shabbos?
there? No, I'm staying here.
Nice.
Yeah. What's happening in shul? Any big surprises?
I don't know. I mean, this is the first Shabbos I'm going to be back in 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
I guess the only surprise is when Elisha Siegelman has a baby.
That's true. When's that going to happen?
I think it's about that time.
What's happening with the house?
They're under a major construction. You haven't seen?
No, I didn't hear anything. No.
I think they ripped up the whole thing. Inside.
Wow.
Needed it. By the way, we're getting a new next door neighbor. I don't know who yet.
Oh. Is it
Meaning
you?
it's sold.
It did? For what they wanted?
Bossy's not really allowed to say yet.
Oh, I saw someone standing in front of the house today.
Probably.
Didn't look like a from person.
Okay. Maybe we'll have Chinese neighbors.
You know what the 3 most dreaded words in the English language are? As your new neighbor. Maybe that's what it was. As your new neighbor. What time they daven mincha across the street from you?
7:20. It's a big conflict. Yeah.
Doesn't work anymore.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're having a hard time getting a minion.
Next door at Ronnie's?
Yeah.
Oh. Wonder why.
I guess all these shuvachers went away, go back to school.
Yeah, they went back.
The younger boys,
Maybe people are still away. I don't know.
Yeah, Kudo went back to Israel on Sunday. Rough.
Yeah, all that vacation and now back to work.
Yavna just reinstituted its 8th grade trip to Eretz Yisrael.
Oh, nice.
$3,600 for 7 days. Whatever.
Are you going?
Dina's going.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Okay, where's the Rebbe here? He's got Svika Shir in 25 minutes.
I know.
My daughter just came back from Pesach. They were in South Africa, by Cape Town.
Oh my gosh.
And then they had a private They went on a safari for 4 days. And,
That sounds like fun.
yeah, I said he had a great time. Not 9 of them, but my daughter and all the children and son-in-law had a good time.
They saw all the animals. They saw all the big
All big
animals?
five. The
big five. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. Trip of a lifetime. Yeah.
Hey, doctor.
Hi. Okay, we're on Nun Bays 52.
Yep.
Ketzad Asa Maimer. So, hi get Acher get, who the Mishnah starts off by saying is talking the subject get Acher get, and when it starts explaining, it goes into it explains, instead of explaining get Acher get, it says how do you do Maimer? So Amr Virachi cover get Acher get u Maimer Achar Maimer Kedamara. The Mishnah starts off by talking about the two processes, get Acher get, Maimer after Maimer. Then Yavam Echad Vivam Achad Ketzad Hatartan. When you have Reuven and Shimon, only one wife of Reuven and only Shimon. So how can you break the kesher between the widow and this man? So also Maimer be a vimtov and also laget. So if he did Maimer and then gave her a get, the get doesn't get rid of the zika, it gets rid of the Maimer, but you still need chlitza to get rid of the zika. Then the Mishnah said, or the Brisa said, also Maimer Baal, if the brother did Maimer and then he had relations with her, Harei Zuki Mitzvasa. That's the way the mitzvahs of Yibum should take place. Lema Masaila Ravuna, Dam Ravuna Mitzvahs Yevama. What's the best way of doing Yibum? Mekadesh v'achar kach boil. He gives kiddushin and then he has relations, like a regular marriage. So the Gemara says it's not necessarily a proof. Ema avzek mitzvasa, meaning this is another way of doing it. So the Gemara says pshita. Of course, that's a way of doing it. So the Gemara says no. Salkadai techayim aybar thad kivin damar mar. How oisa maimer be a vimto. Somebody does maimer to the woman. Parchem and zikas vamin. There's no zika. Chalal of zikas erusin v'nesu. Now you're on track of regular marriage, and then maybe aim alav mitzvah of it, and maybe therefore you don't perform the mitzvah of yibum if you have be'ila with her. Kamash balon that you do. Gufa. Aravuna mitzvah sivamin. What's the standard way, the mitzvah way of doing yibum? Mekadesh v'achakach boy. Now in Baal, the Asa Maimer Khan, if he did it in reverse, he's still koine because he's koine with the bia. And so the Gemara says in Baal Asa Maimer Pshita the Hakani b'bia. I mean, of course he's koine. He was koine the bia. Le'ema in Baal beloy Maimer Kana. He wanted to tell us that even beila alone without Maimer, he still acquires her. Frag the Gemara. What do you mean? There's a brisa that says if he's Baal without Maimer, Vatanya Loike gets Malchus. The Gemara says that's not Malchus mi d'oraisa, that's Malchus mardus d'rabbanon. Chachamim do not want people to just going around without kiddushin. It's pritzus. Therefore, they're going to give you Malchus.
So what's our havamina that we know Maimer's derabanan, but we would think that since a person was not doing according to the rabbanim, that even though he's doing it correctly according to the Torah, it still wouldn't be good?
No, because the Baraisa said, in Baal below Maimer loike, he gets Malchus. So first of all, the Gemara is going on the issue, well, what kind of Malchus is this? This is not like what you're saying. It's, what violates
the rabbanim?
So, no, so the Malchus is Drabbana here. And the Gemara is about to explain. The Rav Mangin Man de Bekadesh Bebia. We know there are three mechanisms of performing kiddushin, keser, shtar, and bia. But Rav used to give malchus to a man who was makadesh his wife with bia. So that's, Kenny, what's going on here. That when the Brisa said ba b'loy maimar loike, it means this kind of malchus.
But we don't have any havamina to say that it isn't good. No, there's no havamina to say it's good. Of course it's good, but you still get malchus dirabanan.
Yeah, that's correct. That means the kinyan works through be'ila. The Gemara, that's not, the Gemara is now, the Gemara didn't take up on the issue of imboblo maimar kana. It brought a brayso that said vatanya loike. What do you mean kana? There's a brayso that gets malchus. What kind of kinyan is this? And Chanami says the Gemara, it is a kinyan. He acquired her. Malchus is malchus mardus midrabana. The Rav man gid man de mekadosh bebia. Like the case where Rav gave malchus to men who were mekadosh bebia, or mad de mekadosh beshuka. Kiddushin is a private thing. If somebody goes to the woman and presents her with kiddushin in the middle of the market, it's also pritzas. He would give malchus for that. Uman de mekadosh below shiduchi. Shiduchi is like dating, talking, arranging in advance. You just come up to somebody, boom, and give her kiddushin. He would give malchus for that. Uman de mavatal gita. Person would write a get, but he would mavatal it, even beforehand. In front of Vadim, he says, this get that I'm going to write is going to be mavatal. So the woman wouldn't know that he was mavatal it. And she ends up getting married, and she's an Eshes Ish, and the child would be mamzerim. So Rav gave malchus to people who would mavatal their get. Uman de moiser moidah gita. There were people who, before he gave a get, in front of 3 people, he gave like sort of an announcement that he's not really giving this get out of his free will. He's being forced in it. Now, this also creates like a get puzzle, but the woman sometimes doesn't know about the guy who was Masar Modah in front of Bezdin, and she goes and gets married with the get. So therefore, he gave malchus to people like that. Uman de foker shlichad rabbanon. Somebody was chutzpahdik, the Bezdin sent out a shliach, and people were chutzpahdik to the shliach. Uman de shori shamte rabbanon le'etlos yom v'lasi le'beidina v'tov l'shamte. Person was put into cherem by Bezdin, and they gave him 30 days to resolve it. And he didn't come to Bezdin to resolve it. They would give him malchus too. There were sons-in-laws who would move into their father-in-law's house before the marriage. And that could lead to znus, both with the kala and more worrisome with the parent, with the mother-in-law. So, and the Gemara points out, the door in the chalif lo. We give malchus if he moves in. If he lives nearby, that's not a problem. There was a case where a son-in-law moved in the neighborhood of the mother-in-law, and Rav Sheshes gave him malchus. So who made Avedaya Mechamose? There was already a rumor that he was fooling around with the mother-in-law. So that's why there was already Raglayim Ledover. And Nardoyom Bekula Lo Man Gid Rav. On all these cases, Rav didn't give malchus. El Makadosh Bebia Uvelo Shiduchi. On the cases where he was Makadosh Bebia or is Makadosh without Shiduchi. Vekidem Afilu B'Shiduchi Nami Mishum Pritzusa. That if he, for example, he's mezamein edim to the bia, it would still, even with shituchi, he would give malchus because of the pritzus. Tarabara. How does mimer work? Kate said mimer. What do you have to do mimer? Nosan lo kesef or shava kesef. He gives her money or a ring. Uvishtar. Period. Vishtar. Uvishtar ketzad. For the more bishtar ketzad kedamoran. Like we say by kiddushin, kosav lal in the yar. O alacheres, aval pi she'ein bo shava pruta, hareat mikudeshas li. That's enough. So that's the same thing here by Maimer. Amar Rabbi Hachi Kamer, Shtar ksubas yivamim ketzad. We're talking about how did they write the ksuba by Yibum? Cause of law. He would write in the ksuba, Ana Ploni bar Ploni, I, Moshe ben Avram, Kabul siyat ploinis yivimti alai, lozun lefarnis akaroi. I accept financial responsibility on this yivama to provide her with mazon and parnasa appropriately. Uvilvad should ksuboso nechse balarisho. The money is going to come from the estate of the first brother, the first of the husband who died. However, iles lamarisha takin le'rabbanim misheni. If the brother who died didn't have any assets, they were masaking the ksuba from the brother who married her. A man can never live without a ksuba because it's too easy to get rid of your wife that way. Boy minei abai mi rabbo. Nosan get. He gave a Yavama get. We're talking about she fell. She was bezika. V'ama hareat meguresha semeni. You are divorced from me, but but you're not permitted to other people. Now, this get is not a good get by regular gittin. It's got to be a complete break with your wife. But our shaila here is different. Mao, do we say get Yavama Drabonin? The whole issue, a get by Yibum is a rabbinic issue. Get only works if you're Neish Ish. What does this get if there's Zika? So the Chachamim said it's considered as if, since the Zika is a little bit like Kiddushin, if you give her a get, she's your Grusha and you can't marry your relatives. That's all midrabanan. So get Yavama Drabonin. Get the Mahani Beishas Ish, Mahani Biyavama. So get that works to free up with an Neish. You see, Chachamim gave it a power that it has a certain power by Yavama. So, but maybe get the Loman Beishas. That's only a real get. This get, where the terminology is in it, which says you're not freed to marry anyone you want, which is not a good get. Maybe Loman be Yavama. Maybe such a get to Yavama does not create her to be a Grusha, and maybe a Kohen could still marry her. Or maybe people will make a mistake and they'll think it's a real get. In fact, the Gemara says, we are choishish, and therefore we treat it in all cases like a get, and the get would have force, and she'd be a grush, she can't marry a relative, she can't marry a kohen. Let's say he gave a plain piece of paper. What? We're going to make a gzeira chayshina that maybe people thought that she was given a get? It says, by a case of a blank piece of paper, it doesn't have any power anywhere. If he gives a piece of paper to a woman where there's not a language of a get, even if he says, this is your get, that doesn't have any power. And she could still marry a kohen. But hacha kapasul bekuhuna. In this case, it does pasul. Detanya, the isha grusha mi isha lo yikachu. Afilu non isgar shela mi isha. Even if the gerushin is only like from this man, and it's only he's not given permission to marry. The get doesn't have language that permits her to marry somebody else. It breaks the relationship with her husband. But a get that is not fully a get is still considered grusha mi isha. She's a grusha. Lo yikachu, a kohen can't marry her. That's what's considered reach get that passes by kuna. The type of get that says, yes, I divorce you from me, but you're not allowed to marry anybody else. The Torah says, even though it's not a good get, she's considered a grusha. From that moment on, she wouldn't be able to marry a kohen. Amar Rami Bar Chama, Harei Amru. Amar Echad L'Lavla. A person said to a scribe, Ksov get la rusa sasi. Write me this get for the woman I gave kedushin to. Ulasha echna sena. When I marry her, agar shana, I will divorce her with it. Now, harei zeh get, this will work. Mipnei shebiyada l'garsha. At the time he was married to her through Kiddushin. So at the time, he could give her a get. Therefore, the get has power. However, li'isha ba'alma ain't get. If he's not married to a woman, he writes a get like that. Oh, when I'm mekadesh you and when I marry you, this get will divorce you. That's not a get, because at that time when he writes it, ein biyada l'garsha. Okay. Boiran barchama liyavimto mahu. What about he wrote a get for the Yavama, but didn't give it to her. But he gave it to her after he was koines her. Now, kiven de agida be karusa sudamya, she's connected through Zika. So maybe she's considered like his arusa. And maybe just like we said before, if you write a get while you're in arus, that'll work, because technically that get could work at that time. But he didn't say mimer to this woman. All there is Zika. So maybe it's not enough. Teku. So we leave it as a teku. If he get the Rambam, because it's a suffix, in Kosov Zeli Yavimta Kodim Shekonsa raise a suffix get. It would be a suffix get. Barav Chananya, Kosov get Lazi Kosov Alolam Amaro. He particularly writes in the get, this get is going to break the Zika, but I don't want it to break the mimer, or vice versa. Lemamaro Velo Zika Mau. Do we say mimer iluya Zika Karami? Mimer is attached to Zika. And therefore, Havalei Kimagarish Chatzi Isha. Here in this case, like you divorced half a woman, Vavagarish Chatzi Isha lost a loklum. Oy Dilma, Hai Lechudek Koi Vai Lechudek. The mimer and the Zika stand separately. And so we're going to answer Tifshut Lemi to Rav Adamar Rava. Nosan get Lamamaro. If he gives a get, like he gave mimer to a woman. There were two, Reuven had two wives. And he gave mimer to one of the women, and then he gave her a get. The din is Hutrut Sarasa. The mimer goes away, but the Zika stays where it is. The co-wife, you could do Yibum to the co-wife. Looks like mimer and Zika are not connected. So that's the Rav of Pshitale, but the Rav Chanani Maboile. But Rav Chananya was Mesupik. How does Rav Chananya pass? My take. The Rambam says also mimer be vimto. If he did mimer to a Yavama woman, and he gave the get for the Zika only, so no one can do Yibum to this woman, because the get, we know, gives you the love of Lo Yivneh. But you still kedelatir l'shuki tzricha get echad lemamar v'chalitza lav kizikasa. We know if you give mimer, you need get and you need the chalitza to break the zika. If he gave a get for the mimer, not the zika, so she remains mutter to the other brothers. And some say it's mutter even to him. That means if he didn't break the zika and the zika is still there, he could fulfill the yibum. That's one opinion. Chalas v'asamimer. One of the examples we said after chlitza, the mimer has no effect. Let's say there were two women, and he gave chlitza to the one woman, and they did mimer to the other. The other one's not considered his wife, and he can marry her relatives because the chlitza broke the zika to both of them. It's a perfectly good chlitza. Since there's a lav now, once he gave chlitza to the woman, there's a lav of lo yivneh. And therefore, and kiddushin is not toifus there. That's why the mimer doesn't have any effect. The mimer after the chalitza will have effect. Even though doing the chalitza made her usher, because as the lav of lo yivneh, but the kiddushin is toifus. Like by chayve lavin of lo yivneh, like a kohen gives kiddushin to a grusha. The kiddushin is toifus. You need a get. Because we hold chayve lavin, kiddushin is toifus. Only Rabbi Kiva holds it's not. Afraid to Gemara, umi matzis mukmas like Rabbi Kiva. How can you set up our mission like Rabbi Kiva? Ktani reisha, nosen get, right? You gave a get that triggers the lav of lo yivneh. Also maimer. So we say tricha get v'chlitza. You need get for the mimer and chlitza to get rid of the zika. Now I don't understand. Rabbi Kiva do you have get me mehane b'mimer? Once he gave her a get, there's a lav of lo yivneh. The mimer is not going to have any effect because it's not toifus. V'atanya Rabbi Kiva minala noisen get liyivinto shenesra v'lo lamis. Once you give a get, she's usher as an erva. Shenemer lo yichal bala rishona sheshelchach hashiluach. It remains. She remains usher. So Amar Ravashi get yivamim b'drabanan. This whole thing that the Chachamim gave get a power by Yibum is only Rabbanon. The pasuk is a cross machta ba'alma. It's only an asmachta. The lo yuchal bala rishon, whatever pasuk they use. Tana ma'achi Amar Rebbe. Ein advarim halolu amurim el divrei Akiva. Shai oisa chalutza kerva. Once you give chalutza, she's nerva, and it's usher. There is activity after chlitva. That's if the mimer was given because he wants to marry her, like a person's mekadosh, a regular woman. But if the kiddushin was given after chlitza only for yibum, then that doesn't work. Because then, after the chlitza, there was no zikas yibum. Let's say you gave chlitza. V'chaz of her kitchen, he went ahead and gave her kiddushin. Rabbi Yomer in kitchen l'shum yisrus trichem and a get. If you wanted to do regular marriage, so you would need a get. L'shum yavmus, then ain't trichem and a get, because the mimer, the kiddushin, has no effect because the zika was broken by the chlitza. But the Chachamim disagree. Chachamim bein shekitch l'shem ishrus, bein shekitch l'shem yavmus, tzrichei meneget. Once you gave mimer, it's kiddushin, the zika doesn't go away completely, and therefore you would require get. Rav Yosef, my time at the Rebbe. Asou ka'oide b'nichsei ager. It's like a ger dies. He has a field. You go into the field and you start raking, and you want to acquire it with chazaka. If he thinks it's his, it's not somebody, and not from Hefker, he's not coining it. It's not comparable to our case. There was no kavon at all for kinyan. Here, when he gives kiddush, he's mechavin to be coined. You want it to compare it to something? I'll tell you what it's comparable to. You have a specific ger, and you went to go do raking or hoeing in that ger's field. However, kisfor shel ger acher, he wants to acquire it, but he doesn't know who he's acquiring from the kani. So there it would be koine. Amar Abaye achbaiskinon could go to Amar law. Hiskatshi li b'maimer yevamim. Be miskadesh to me with the special mimer of Yibum. Rabbi Sover mimer ilu zika karami. The mimer is connected to the zika. V'asoy chlitza avkasa l'zika. The chlitza goes, takes away the zika, and therefore it's all gone. Rabbanon Sover haylachudekai. They both stay around. If he would have just, without anything, say, be miskadish me with Maimer Yavamin, would have helped. Without the get. Here as well, it'll help. I would agree. If he said, be makadish to me with Maimer Yavamin, everybody would agree that it would work. He used a different terminology. And tomorrow, we will learn at 4:30. You want to learn at 8 o'clock in the morning? We can learn 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Let's learn.
I can't do 8. 4:30 is
Fine,
better.
Let's do
4:30 is
4:30.
better.
Fine, 4:30. Very good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
Good.
Shkoyach.
Yeah, Laila Tov.
Laila tov.